But it was about this guy who found a giant robot. And it had flames painted on it, and he would drive it like a car. He looked like Guy Fieri.
Yeah, on Cartoon Network. Yeah,
Guy Fieri in a Transformer.
And it was like rock. It was kind of rock based. Dude, what was that show called?
It doesn't matter what it was called.
We'll have to look it up.
But anyway, no matter what your name is.
So I was big into like Transformers.
Hello there, internet world. It is your boy, Bradston. Yes, the man. And welcome to another episode of Super Agile Bros. You already know what it is. I'm just going to introduce the fellas first before we get into what today's topic is about. Yo, what's happening, Kyle? How are you doing, sir?
What's up, man? Doing good. Glad to be here today.
Good. So, as you heard, we got the boy Kyle in the building. And we got a special guest. Well, I don't know if he's special, but he will be special in a few days. The boy, Steve, he may not be the same Steve the next time we speak with him. But Steve, tell the people hello. The last time you'll tell them hello before you're not the Steve that you are today.
Is this thing on? No, hello.
What?
Everyone can just enjoy that little tidbit. This is my gift to you as Single Steve. You may call me Single Steve.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know what I just heard, but I think I'm going to have to go back and edit whatever just happened.
No, you have to leave it in.
That was problematic. So, cool.
I have no idea what it sounded like.
In his beard or something.
It sounded terrible. Oh, yeah. It sounded so bad.
I was manhandling the mic. I'm sorry.
Oh, it sounded like, yes.
Maybe don't strangle your mic next time.
Yeah.
Well, what really happened was the mic was in the wrong spot, and I realized after we started, and I was like, how can I move the mic without taking away from the, the professionalism of the podcast? And I was like, well, I probably can't. So let me just, run full tilt, embrace the sound.
Yeah. Successfully mission failed. Yeah, I'm gonna just insert in there audio deleted. like
redacted.
That was wild. So anyway, for our listeners, today's gonna be an interesting topic. So, us boys here, we're all about us bros here are all about the internets, the video games, media and culture, the nerd culture. So today
nerd culture.
Only nerd culture. So, because the rest of the culture doesn't matter. Like, who cares about, culture of, other cultures that actually are cultures? You know what I'm saying? I consider
not if they're
myself,
not nerds.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who needs it? What's
cultured?
What good is it?
Yeah, it's like, who cares about what languages were spoken in the past or history or stuff like that?
Those aliens we talked about a few episodes ago, they were nerds.
Exactly. Definitely. If you're an alien and you're traveling, you have to be a nerd. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about media in general. So particularly we're going to be talking about all the different type of medias and kind of where we are in the landscape nowadays. So we're going to talk about cable. We're going to talk about, what is are movie theaters dead, maybe alive? What about streaming, live streaming,
would you say
uploaded content? Huh?
Would you say it's more accurate to say we're talking about entertainment media, not just media in general? Because that's a lot of stuff.
Well, I mean, I think even if I said entertainment, there's all kind of entertainments like books and, sports. And so we'll just say we're talking about the things that we watch today. How about that?
Cool.
To make it real easy.
So
I guess I got an intro question for you guys. I guess we'll start with Kyle. So Kyle, I hope you're ready for your answer. So let me ask you guys, what is the main means or the main media type that you consume for watching? So when I ask that question, I mean, do you watch mostly cable TV, video streaming like Netflix and Hulu? Do you watch user created content like YouTube, Vimeo, all that, or live streaming stuff like Twitch and YouTube? So Kyle, what would you say is your primary medium in which you watch media?
My primary medium, favorite by far, standing at my window with a pair of binoculars. No, I'm just kidding.
Have you seen Crudes 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The TV was just a window.
Just a window. Just that fire. But anyway.
What a crude gag.
Inside
That's
jokes.
how you know you're living that good life, man. When the
Literally.
trees outside move so the birds can be sitting out there one day. Yeah.
Literally inside jokes. Watching the outside.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Oh.
So anyway, so Kyle. So, yeah.
So it would have to be hands down YouTube. Like,
Okay.
no matter what I'm doing, any time of the day, YouTube is usually playing in the background to some degree, whether it's I'm listening to music or watching somebody doing a review of something. YouTube is hands down what I watch the most.
Okay, why do you feel like YouTube? Like, why YouTube? You know,
I think it's just because there's so much variety on YouTube, in my opinion, and I kind of like the fact that it is user generated. So a lot of times you have an idea of what to expect, but there's usually some sort of nuance to it that I haven't really gleaned from like watching a series on Hulu or watching a movie on Disney Plus. Like I kind of go to those for specific high quality, quote unquote, entertainment, while YouTube just feels like more day to day to me. And so, whatever I'm feeling, I feel like I could just find that on YouTube and just vibe.
Interesting.
And do you pay for YouTube Premium so you don't have ads?
No, I just I have an ad blocker on Firefox.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Sold himself out. YouTube about to send him a message. Better turn that off, fool. We coming for you.
I don't even care.
Well, okay. I mean,
We'll
I
see.
guess YouTube blocker. I wonder what the legality of a YouTube blocker is. It seems like if it was bad, YouTube would have done something. Because a lot of websites, like if they see a blocker, they're like, "You're done."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean it's
Disabled.
illegal. That just means they're not willing to.
Well, it's against maybe the terms of service. Like if you're going to use
Sure.
this, who knows. So anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. So what about you, Steve-O, Glasses Steve? What's your
It's single Steve today.
single Steve?
Or maybe it should be unmarried Steve, because single kind of means like single.
No,
single.
you said single. It's too late.
Yeah, you said it.
Dang.
That's what it is.
Well, that's all good. I think if you just go by like the number of things that I've watched, it's far and away YouTube. I watch so many YouTube videos in a given day. I kind of have YouTube as like if I'm waiting for something, like for code to compile or something to roll out, I'm watching YouTube. If I'm just taking a break, I'm watching YouTube. If I really need to like focus and not be kind of floating around for a work day, I have to block YouTube. That's the thing I block. But if we go by like the amount of time, it might be, I would say like Netflix streaming. So Netflix, Funimation, Crunchyroll. Yeah. So like I watch Star Trek every day with lunch. Watch various anime throughout the week. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, that's interesting.
No cable.
That's interesting. So do you guys feel like, and of course I answer this question, but since you both said YouTube, do you feel like YouTube is the replacement for silence now in your life? Like just being real, like, how like, I don't know if you guys ever go anywhere. Like, I'm a people watcher, right? So if I stand around and I'm in a line at a store, I just kind of watch what people do. And most of the time people pull their phones out. And they normally just get on some type of social media. YouTube might be hard because it's like you got to listen or whatever. But like people aren't social media. So when you're like around, like in a space where you can listen to YouTube, do you feel like YouTube is the like, hey, like, because what else would I do right now? Or do you feel like it's active entertainment, versus like just background noise, if that makes sense?
I guess it's kind of in between. So for me, it's not always background noise. Although recently I have been like finding channels that are mostly audio. I try to have them playing while I'm doing something else. So I don't have to like watch. But I don't want to call it background noise because usually when I sit down, it's quiet. I just want to watch something. I am paying attention. However, I don't usually go into it with the intent to watch something specific or out of a specific curiosity or anything. I just scroll until I find something that seems to not take up too much time and to be vaguely interesting. You know, and I might go down a hole. I might just go surfing where like it's just random stuff. You know how YouTube is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quick it's a slippery. Yeah. Like one video, you go there for one video and you try to find a short one and then an hour passes.
Yeah. I always love when I don't do that because I feel like I have more time. And I've been trying to practice, I guess it's not necessarily meditation, but just kind of like spiritual, like quietness with God kind of stuff. And that's the biggest, the biggest obstacle for me is YouTube, probably.
Interesting. That's for real. What about you, Kyle? Like, is this similar to Steve in that way?
Yeah, I'd say so. I tend to listen to a lot of channels where it's weird because I don't necessarily tend to be a person who likes podcasts, ironically, but a lot of the YouTube videos I watch are at their core kind of like podcasts because I watch a lot of art YouTube videos, and so it's somebody explaining a technique or some theory behind the art they're making, explaining anatomy or something, but it's accompanied with them drawing it, and so that's like what I guess brings to the next level for me. Like a time lapse of some sort. And so, like a lot of times I listen to YouTube to learn something, as well as if it's like one or two people, then I guess it seems like I'm not by myself. And so, so just having another voice, that's a familiar voice because, people I subscribe to is kind of nice.
Yeah, they become your friends. They become your family.
It's funny you talk about learning stuff because I actually do have a lot of time where I do seek out stuff I'm learning. So like I do a lot of research for shopping or something on YouTube, or like a new topic I want to learn about on YouTube. So for example, I have short obsessions, and right now one of my obsessions is watches. And I've just been like going on YouTube and like looking up watch reviews and listening to people talk about watches and like, oh, what are these
wristwatches?
Wristwatches, yeah. I dug out.
Oh,
my
you thought
old
you
fancy
meant
watch.
wall watch? Wait, what other watch would there be?
Yeah,
leg watch.
What are you talking about, Kyle?
I don't know. I was just
pocket watches. Sure. Pocket watches. He's like, I'm really into pocket watches right now.
No, maybe I'm not a dweeb. I'm a nerd, not a dweeb.
Up for debate.
As I currently have like a pocket watch behind me on the table, so there you have it.
Dweeb.
But yeah, I do a lot of like I find a lot of interesting stuff that like I feel like I learn something after I watch it, and there's some channels that are really good for that I subscribe to. In a nutshell, Smarter Every Day, various computing and mathematical channels that have cool little learning videos. It's good stuff.
Interesting.
It's like the Discovery Channel.
YouTube, yeah, like YouTube gives you access to, it's like, of course, YouTube is entertainment, right? Like if you think about it at the core of it, right? Like you don't necessarily go on there to watch boring things, right? You're like, man, I'm really looking forward to learning about, some esoteric, boring professor talking about some really unimportant thing, like you go on there
C-SPAN of YouTube.
Yeah, like C-SPAN. You're not interested, but you might go on there if you're interested in the topic, right? Because you want to learn about it, and it's an engaging format. So I want to come back to YouTube because you guys, I have some questions, particularly about some things that have happened recently with YouTube removing the dislike button and stuff like that.
Ooh, yeah.
But like for
me, did you say what your favorite media was?
Yeah, not yet. I was just about to say it. Yeah, I was gonna say for me, it's definitely streaming platforms. Actually, I would say that like YouTube, I've more recently started watching more.
Because of us?
I think so.
It's all your fault, Steve.
I also just think it's just the stage of life that I'm in, and kind of the work that I do now kind of is a little bit different. So I guess going back to like my main source of media is that I like to sit down and watch something. You know, like if I'm going to watch it, like I don't do passive watching very well.
You want to make a meal of it.
Yeah, especially when it comes to something that I want to entertain me. So like, I think there's like different orders of like attentiveness. So like there's I'm going to watch something like say The Witcher on Netflix. Like I'm going to sit down. I'm going to like probably not interact with my phone too much. I'm just going to really just watch it. I might look at my phone from time to time if something boring's happening or something I don't care about. But like I'm invested. Same with movies, sci-fi movies, as bad as 90% of them are. And like, I'm there. So to me, it's like, if I'm going to watch something, I feel like I need to be engaged. Then there's the next level of like, I've already consumed this media before and I want to revisit it, but I don't need to give it 100% of my attention. So most of the time that's like a show that I'm watching and I'm doing something else. Like maybe I'm coding, working on some game development project, messing around with some thing that I want to learn, you know, something like that, right? And then I guess below that would be like passive entertainment, which is where YouTube most of the time falls in for me, where like I'm doing something else that's kind of like, I don't need like 100% of my attention on. Yeah. Like say working, washing the dishes, maybe working out, something like that. And I just want something to like engage the other side of my brain, whatever that means.
Right, sure.
So
I'm going to challenge both of you because I feel like I watch a ton of YouTube. Therefore, when I find something funny or interesting, I send it to my friends or I post it on Facebook or whatever. I'm always sending YouTube links. However, I've noticed a lot of you guys, a lot of what you post is like from TikTok or Instagram. So would you say that you also are on those websites a lot, or is it just, do I have a bad sample group?
I would say that my interests are kind of the same I'm not like a big social media person. So like the stuff that I experience on Facebook is a lot like my experience on YouTube because I subscribe, if you call it that, or like the same pages with like similar content. And so it just really depends on where I see it. That's where I share it from. So like if I saw it on YouTube first, I would have shared it from there.
But I mean, well, yeah, clearly I'm not saying you favor one over the other, but based on, I'm assuming that where you see it is where you share from. And therefore I assume that you must be, you know, all over these sites because you share from those sites a lot.
So it's interesting you say that because like I'm not a big social media person either. Like first of all, I'm never on Facebook, so like you'll never catch me there. So never, anybody who knows me, never reach out to me on Facebook because I'll never respond. But just to let you know,
he'll delete your message.
But yeah, so like primarily like social media, quote unquote, that I use at this point is like Instagram, Reddit, and Twitter because it kind of my job now. But I think, you know, it's funny in the past, like way back in the day, like YouTube circa 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, like that was essentially my social media because videos back then tended to be pretty short, like very short, and like some random clip of a guy like who found, you know, a turtle in his toilet and, man, this turtle here is stupid. You know, like it was videos more like that. And I think for me now, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, that's kind of where I get that content from. That like real quick, kind of sticky stuff that I can send to people, you know. Right. And also I think with the rise, with the popularity of memes, because memes have been around forever. Like I have so many memes, it's crazy. But anyway, like that's kind of my content of like, oh, I need something stupid to do for the next hour, just brainless. So I think when you see that content coming from me, first of all, I'm not on TikTok. Let me just clarify that. If anything ever comes from TikTok for me, it's through Instagram because people just reshare TikToks on Instagram.
I don't know all I know is I get TikTok. You know what? Maybe it's not you two that are sending me TikToks. It might be other people. I know I'm getting TikToks that I have to open, and it's a trash experience on desktop.
It's rough.
Maybe one day I'll use TikTok, but I'm just not super enthralled by
don't.
it.
Stop that.
Yeah. I just feel like social media for me has always been just like, I'm just trying to get piecemeal. Like way back in the day, I felt like I watched more YouTube because there was more video websites. Like I used to watch Vimeo. There's this weird site that only like, it was like a Christian or faith-based site that only showed funny and cute videos, but it was random. I think it was called like Random Video something. And it was just, I would watch that for hours and hours. And most of the videos were like a minute or two. And if you go to my old Facebook, that's 90% of where I posted videos from was that site because it was just,
no kidding.
Yeah. So so I think, when YouTube kind of changed format, I kind of switched and went to different formats, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because YouTube, they recently made like the transition towards like promoting longer videos. So if you have an affinity towards shorter ones, that would make sense that you would go to Twitter, especially because that's their whole thing is that, quick information as digestible as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you've ever gotten a link, just to put it out there, from me for Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, it's because it was linked on Facebook. Because I don't do any of those.
That's what I was wondering. Was like maybe someone else sent that to you and you're just passing it along. That happens to me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I've passed on at least one TikTok to somebody, I'm sure.
Yeah. I can definitely see that in Facebook because Facebook at least retains the original like place that it came from. Like people are so terrible, I would say, on Instagram. I kind of have like curtailed my use of Instagram like for many reasons, but mostly it's people just resharing tweets like and like TikToks and periodically an original Instagram content. But normally it seems like they're synonymous now. Like if you post something on TikTok, you post it on Instagram and vice versa. If it's video content.
Facebook's pretty bad too. I don't know what your experience is, but I've seen a lot of like bad ripping where people just go on YouTube and they find a cool video and they take part of it and it's gone now. Now it's on Facebook. And God bless, Facebook probably has the worst video
player
interface I've seen.
Oh, it's horrible.
And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. It's bad everywhere. And it's bad in different ways.
Yeah, it's not even consistent.
It's completely inconsistent. How many times have I played a video and then had to tap it again to turn sound on?
Yeah.
And then I tap it to pause it, but instead of pausing, it opens the video in a new tab with their stupid player and then keeps playing, but it starts over. And it's like, this is exactly the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted to pause it, maybe to read the screen or like to show it to somebody, but instead, God, I get angry when people send me Facebook videos because I don't want to open them.
It's very bad.
I definitely have y'all ever been to a site? It's really old. It's called eBombs World.
Oh yeah,
way back in the day. Like Facebook video reminds me of like eBombs World because it's like it was like it just played videos, right? Like it was just like, hey, this was like the only place at the time, especially for like it was like the land before YouTube, like where you would see funny videos and stuff like that. And I feel like Facebook has realized that they're more of a utility than a like thing that people use for entertainment. Because like, think about like your water company. Like how many water companies' websites are like high quality?
None.
Like they don't have to be because they're like, you have to come here. You got to drink water. You have to pay your bill. So our portal is going to be as minimalistic, as possible, and I feel like Facebook is kind of like, hey, like people don't come here for the videos. They come here for whatever other interactions. The videos are just a plus. So we're just like, and they can complain, but they keep watching it. You know, like, why should I change it and make it better if they're going to keep watching this trash? You know, keep using it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I will say? For a long time, for the past like half a year or a year, Facebook on mobile has been getting worse and worse. Not the app, but the actual like mobile site. Because I don't use the app. I always use the mobile site because screw you, Facebook. But it's been getting worse and worse, like less functionality. And recently it got to the point where I can't even tag people unless I'm on desktop. But then this morning I tagged somebody for the first time in months.
Oh,
And I was
snap.
like, oh, incredible. It worked.
Welcome to the year 2021.
Seriously.
Yeah, you know, I feel like Facebook is exactly the issue with media in general. When I say media, I'm talking about the medium of watching things. Because like none of us, let me ask you guys this. Do any of you guys have a cable subscription?
Like DirecTV or something?
Just cable. Like not
Any
just
cable.
the basic
Yes.
cable that you maybe get for free, but like you pay for cable. Like
So
out of
yes,
pocket.
DirecTV would be that's satellite, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
But
satellite.
it's synonymous with cable, sure.
It's the direct competitor, more or less, right? So you have DirecTV. What about you, Kyle?
No, I don't have DirecTV.
Oh, you don't
Kyle
have
said that.
DirecTV.
He's an advocate for DirecTV.
No, I'm not. Kyle said DirecTV. I didn't.
Wait, Kyle, do you have DirecTV?
So no, I have Charter, and I did have their
Sounds
because
good.
they had the packages. So I had their cable 6 years ago was the last time I had cable. Right now, I do not have cable because it was horrible.
So you don't have Charter.
I have Charter for internet.
Oh, okay.
So you had cable because it was a bundled thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And similarly, I have cable because where I live, which is the craziest experience I've ever had, they actually pay for our internet. Like 100%.
Must be nice.
Tell them to pay more because your Wi-Fi sounds rough right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I can pay for more, you know, but I mean, I don't really care, and it doesn't really have big of an issue for me. And I stream every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
My man living on that hotel Wi-Fi.
You know,
He's on that airplane Wi-Fi.
yeah. I mean, I can get up to 100. You know, maybe more. So like, it's pretty good.
100 megabytes or megabits?
Ping.
Man, I don't know the difference. I just know my internet's better than my internet that I had in Louisiana.
That's a shame.
That's for sure. And I don't pay for it. But also the thing is, we get cable through that. We have,
Got
I
it.
guess, Cox or whatever. So Cox Internet and Cox Cable. And like, we've periodically used it, like maybe to watch Shark Tank or The Office or a random show when we don't feel like watching something on streaming. But like, honestly, I think like the reason I brought it up is because like, I think like cable TV is the definition to me of like when you didn't have any competition, so you never had to really like do anything better. And it wasn't until Netflix came around and like Redbox and stuff like that, where like I feel like cable was like, oh snap, we got to do something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like Facebook is like that now. It's like,
But they haven't done it yet. Whatever it is that, oh snap, they got to do, they haven't done.
Well, they started to do like what is it, the pay-per-views and stuff. Mm-hmm. Was that before or after Redbox?
Pay-per-views have existed as long as I've been alive, I feel like.
But pay-per-views, a lot of times you had to have dish. You had to have a satellite. Like you couldn't get it through cable.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It wasn't mainstream, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Like you had to know somebody who had like boxing fights and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like you had to know somebody who had satellite in order to watch the pay-per-view. Because like cable's like, what you gonna do? Like they have the one thing that cable has, and the reason why it's not dead, is live sports. And that's it.
Right.
And
that's it.
And they've been smart enough to where they haven't fully let live sports go away, like the streaming platforms. What they do is like you can stream it on Hulu or YouTube or Amazon or whatever, but you have to have a subscription a lot of times
to the cable company.
To the cable company. or you have to pay some exorbitant amount of money to get the package or something in addition.
Yeah, they make it difficult outside of having cable.
So I do have cable, but it's against my wishes. When I moved in with the guys I live with now, they had cable, and they really wanted to keep it. And I was like, well, I have no reason for you not to have cable, but I'm never, ever going to touch it. And in fact, I went ahead and unplugged the cable box that was downstairs where I live, because I'm like, I'm not going to use it. It's blocking an outlet.
What a message you sent.
It's blocking an HDMI port on the TV.
He's literally protesting, like, I refuse.
No,
I don't want it here. Not in my house.
I mean, yeah.
Puts the cable box in the toilet, actively peeing on it.
Yeah. So, like, I don't care for it. I recently watched a video. It's I forgot the YouTube channel. This guy, he just basically makes fun of like movies and TV and stuff. And he did a whole episode about cable. And you know the joke that like, it's like the Planeteers, and it's like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and all our powers combined, and then it's Captain Planet, and it's like, you know, it's just as expensive as cable. It's not. It's not as expensive as cable. Cable's bonkers.
Yeah, it's super expensive.
He was going through like his bill, and it's like $30 just to breathe, basically, on top of the package, and then $9 just to have it was $30 to have the remote, like to be able to have a remote.
What?
Yes, and then some other fee that they just called it like basically, it was a fee where they're like, oh, the TV providers raised their prices, so unfortunately, we have to pass it to you.
Oh, so a lie.
Yeah, a lot. And he's like, why don't you just put it in the bundle, like, as part of the price? And the answer is because the price would be higher and people would realize this is a sham.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he ended up paying, like, 180% of what he was expecting to pay every month.
See, the thing is, like, I promise you, the reason that your roommates, and I know some of your roommates, have cable is live sports. And in that's football, wrestling, basketball, because like
so
those stuck. What'd you say?
I said, so they're stuck.
Yeah, because that's the only medium, and that's why the cable industry still exists. 100% live sports. It's a difference. Now, I think, and then there's some networks, for example, like ESPN, CNN, those people who kind of like, since they have a lot of local versions of themselves, you know, like it's easier for them to provide their content via, you know, cable networks, because cable networks have a lot of local providers and stuff like that. And I think most of it is just simply, number one, they've been hemorrhaging users. Like, people our age, like, I genuinely, like, most people I know don't have cable. You know what I'm saying? Like,
same.
They have Netflix or Amazon, whatever. And the friends that I do have that have cable are normally into sports. And what cable providers have to do is, what do they like to make up for the difference of loss is trick people, right? Like, take more money from, what do you call them? The fishes, the whales, like the people who feel that they need cable, and who also, the type of person who has cable probably tends not to like overly pay attention to their cable bill. It's just what it is. Like, oh, in order for me to have cable, I have to pay this much. I guess that's what it is. So yeah, I think it's just, it's what you got to do to survive. They got to pay for infrastructure that they already made, and you know, it's
people I know that have cable. It is because of sports, but then it's like all the bundles to inflate the price. They bundle stuff in there that these people never use, like all these different, I guess, semi-subscriptions. Like, you have these special channels, which I guess come at a premium price, but there's like no way to opt out of those easily. So it's just like, lump it all in, and you're, you know.
One of the extra bills, now that you mentioned that, it was like the DVR was it was an extra subscription every month, but the DVR is built into the cable box. Like, everybody has it, but again, they make it extra on the side.
Snap.
It's like Tesla. Like, you can have the crazy mode or whatever it's called. It's like in every Tesla, but you have to pay to unlock that part of it. So like, every Tesla has like the best version of Tesla like software to hardware connections or whatever, but you have to pay to get access to that part of the Tesla in order to use it, which is so technically at any time you could upgrade your Tesla.
Well, yeah, but they also sell the Teslas at that price. And they say, well, if you don't want to pay it now, you could do this later, but here's what it would cost you. Like, they don't trick you. It really is like the best of both worlds.
Well, I'm just saying, I was just making the note that like in a Tesla, you have more capabilities, but you don't have access to them unless you pay for them. And it's similar to like,
Sure.
the cable box, like, oh, it has all these capabilities, but you can't unlock it unless you pay more,
There was a game that did something similar. I think it was Street Fighter 4, like right before DLC was where it was to where you could, have these huge character pack downloads and stuff. Like they shipped the game with all the characters on the disc, but they were locked behind a code or something that you had to pay for.
Well,
yeah. Actually,
that doesn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
That doesn't really strike me the same because with Tesla, they're building a car, they're building the car, and it has the features, but it's software locked. But this is like, well, they built the feature, whether they put it on the disc or not, kind of doesn't matter, right?
No, it's software
locked.
locked. It's software locked. It's the same with Soul Calibur had the same thing when they did. I think it was Soul Calibur 4 or 5. Whatever one had Yoda and Darth Vader.
Oh yeah.
And it was platform specific. If you had 360, you got Yoda. If you had the PlayStation, you got Darth Vader. Well, find out if you look at the code, they're both in there. Like you can technically, they're both in there, but they're software locked. Or I guess you could say connected to your hardware, where they're basically like, oh, if you're PlayStation, we run this part of code. And if you're Xbox, we run this part of code. But technically, it's both, all that data's on the disk. You just can't get access to it.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, to me, that doesn't matter. If it's the console thing is kind of weird, but as far as like DLC that's going to come out later, but just not unlocked yet, I'm like, I don't care if it's on the disc when I buy the disc. I'm a little more miffed that it was ready to go and they didn't include it in the game. That's like, even if it wasn't on the disc, if it was ready to go, I'd be like, no, I want this to be part of the game. The fact that it came on the disc means nothing to me.
So the argument was kind of twofold. I think, there was a party that said, since it's already on the disc, we should already have access. Anything to come should be completely new. But then also, it wasn't it was weird how they handled it. And that's why it was so bad. Like, they weren't treating it like it was down the line type of stuff. It was just like, we know it's there. You know it's there. We gave it to you. It's in your hands. But you can't have it unless you give us more money type of thing.
Yeah, it's more of the cable route of like, you need this type of subscription to get access to these features versus like DLC. Because this is like you were saying, Kyle, this was prior to DLC's prevalency in the gaming industry and, prevalence. And in many ways, it was just like people were trying new things to see how they could get money out of the customers. So
see how scummy they could be.
Yeah, man, you got to get that money. What's interesting? So, coming back to, the YouTubes, because to me, cable... So, I'll say this. Cable has innovated recently, because even using Cox now, because of my TV, there's, no, Spectrum. We have Spectrum. There's a Spectrum app, and you can view what shows are playing on your TV, even if you're not actively using the Spectrum. Like say you have 5 HDMI ports, right? Sure. And you're playing your, PlayStation 5 and you press your TV controller. You can look at the Spectrum app that's on your TV and it'll show you what's happening live on Spectrum. And then you can switch to that channel automatically. And you can see where it is progress-wise in that show or what's...
That sounds kind of nice.
So they've definitely innovated. I think that, the Netflix and the Hulus and the Amazon Primes of the world, forced, cable companies to adapt. So that's a good thing. But what I was going to mention is that, how do you guys feel about the same Okay, so YouTube is awesome. But one of the biggest problems is that YouTube almost has too much content, right? The quality bar is like you have to trust the algorithm, right, to give you the
Mhm.
content that's interesting to you, right?
Yeah.
Now, something like Netflix or Hulu, now that they've grown in, you know, their popularity and their possibility of making money, it's like they have more content and it's harder to tell what's good and bad. Do you guys ever experience that? Like you go on Netflix or Hulu or whatever and you're like, oh, I want to watch something, but you don't know what's good or bad. It's just like
yeah.
a miasma.
Yeah, there's so much, and I feel like I feel like the algorithm has a very hard time pinning down what I want to watch in a moment. It really just feels like a bad, or like a very simple, like, oh, you just watched this. Here's 4 videos from that channel. Here's 4 videos from that subject matter. Here's the same video you watched 2 weeks ago. Seriously, I get repeats all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't understand, because sometimes I want to watch a video again.
And this is
because
YouTube?
I watched it on YouTube, sure. Sometimes I want to watch a video again because I watched it 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was funny. Or just because it's so good, I want to watch it twice in a row. But that doesn't mean that I want to watch every video I've ever seen the next week.
Sure you
Sorry.
do.
That's not really the answer to your question, but I've just been thinking about it all day. Like, why is the homepage so bad?
It is bad sometimes. But I remember having a similar experience when I did have Netflix. Mainly when I guess Netflix really started sinking money into producing their own Netflix originals. To me, that's when the quality really just became like there's no pulse anymore as far as where the quality is going to be as soon as something comes out. And like you said, there's just so much now because they have. I heard that they were in the red, but I guess they have infinite money to put into these shows.
The red is just their logo color.
We're always in the
They're always in the red.
I mean, from what I understood, at least from in the past, Netflix has been operating off a loss for like years. Like, but somehow they're still making money. I don't understand these things. You don't ask me. But
I've never heard that before. But
yeah,
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, like they net year to year. They're paying more money to license things, you know, for shows and stuff, because on the back end, what they're trying to do is get the subscriber count up high so that they can start to let go of the, you know, the shows like The Office, which they've done. And, you know, the bigger shows that brought people to the platform, but now they're here. So like you'll probably notice a lot of shows that used to be there that are really popular aren't there anymore because the licensing fee is higher. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But, you know, I was going to actually echo exactly what you said, Cal, about Netflix originals. I remember when Netflix original actually meant that there's a very good chance that this piece of content is high quality. Mm-hmm. Like anything that popped out that was Netflix original when they first started coming out was like, yo, this is a banger. Like, you know, it was like the Marvel shows. It was like random small movies. You know what I'm saying?
Stranger Things.
Incredible.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
I will say the opposite was true for anime. Netflix original anime was so bad.
It's garbage.
Are you sure about that?
Now it's
Knights
still
of Sidonia.
bad.
Knights of Sidonia is that fire.
You know what blows my mind, man? After we talked about Knights of Sidonia a few episodes ago, I went on YouTube and I was looking up stuff about it, and I was like, surely there are other people who are complaining about Knights of Sidonia. People love it.
Everyone loves it.
I don't understand. It's so, like, obviously bad.
Maybe that's why.
Well, here's the thing. I think, from what I figured out, that the Netflix anime community, because I have realized there is a different community, is different than the community that you are a part of, Steve. I'm also a part of it, but I'm just saying this as, like, using you as an example.
What do you mean, you people?
You people. Like, Crunchyroll type of anime person, Netflix type of anime person. Like, think about that for a second. The Netflix type of anime person is like, oh, I found the first anime I ever saw was Knights of Sidonia, right? Or something like that. And then maybe other stuff is filtered in, you know, like, you know, Full Metal Alchemist or Parasite, Ajin. Well, that's a Netflix original, you know, stuff like that. So like, oh, they get to see quality stuff, but their bar started with like this kind of weird, especially the 3D stuff, like was kind of like that middle tier. But you're kind of used to like going out of your way to find quality anime. and like watching the subs and knowing the difference between subs and dubs. But like, I think that it's kind of like where you got introduced to it is where you set your, you know, your like for example, UFC is the most popular MMA. But a lot of people got introduced to it through some lower level. So like, if you start at UFC, when you look at the lower level stuff, you're like, man, I can't believe people watch this. You know, you might think like that if you're not a big MMA fan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Well, I'll give you that. Maybe it's just the YouTube or it's just the Netflix anime folks, but I was still surprised that I couldn't find people just dogging on this because it seems so easily doggable.
You could be the first, Steve.
I could be the first.
Also, isn't Nice Sidonia kind of a weird harem fan service type? It's not fan service. It's more harem. And people like harem animes, so.
But people also deride harem animes. Like, there are people out there who should be complaining about this. I just don't know where they are.
Yeah. I think it's kind of similar to, you know, and I very much don't even want to invoke this name, but I'm just going to say it because it's just contextual. It's like the Twitch, like, girl with the, you know, showing all her cleavage and stuff like that, and the OnlyFans and the Instagram models. Like people will talk bad about that content, but somehow that industry is thriving. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sure, but that isn't what surprises me. I just don't hear people talking bad about the content. That's what surprises me.
Really? I don't know.
Maybe I need to look harder.
Yeah, I guess I've never like looked on Knights of Sidonia, but you know, the fact that I never hear anybody talking about it in the anime community at large tells me enough.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I expect. I thought everyone was on the same page.
Well, maybe that's the fact like how the animated community works is that like if it's not talked about, then it's considered to not be good, right? Like because
it's not controversial enough to get talked about.
Exactly. There's so much anime now. Like there's so much. It's kind of like I'm not gonna waste my time unless it's garbage. Like.
Well,
I mean, we watched 2 seasons of Knights of Sidonia. That means that it was passable. You know what I'm saying?
That's like, true. And you know what? I was watching these people crow about it, and I'm like, you know, the music was pretty good, and the art design was really terrible, but the articulation was sometimes like the space battles was fair.
So maybe it can't have any redeeming qualities if it's gonna truly be bad enough to just dog on it.
That must be it.
You know. Speaking of anime, and just now that you say that, like, let me ask you this, guy. Like, do you guys know of an anime that's in the community in general, at large, that is talked about really badly? Because now that I think about it, I really can't think of an anime that people dog a lot.
Berserk.
That they dog? I mean.
The 3D Berserk.
Oh, like where's
one?
that? I don't even know where that is. What's that on?
I don't remember. I think it was on Netflix.
Which
so there's the old Berserk anime that like ended, and it was really good. Everyone loved it. And then I want to say 5 or 10 years ago they had a 3D version of it, and yeah, I mean maybe it's not the anime community at large. It might just be Berserk fans, but that is widely panned.
Really?
Oh yeah,
I gotta look this up.
It deserves it.
Yeah, I don't think
it kind of has the same art style as like the first JoJo season, but really ugly and not well done at all. Like it's
they tried their best.
Did they?
They
don't tell me
they got paid for it. That's all that matters, really.
Yeah, money was exchanged for sure. Computers, like electrons flowed in a computer somewhere.
Somebody's bank account changed the number. It changed.
Went down.
Yeah, I mean,
that's probably one of the ones.
Yeah, can you think of any, Kyle? Because
no, I don't think I know enough to even be able to, though.
I think what it is that like
Sword Art Online.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like anime is one of those things where everything is debatable in a sense. Like people will say that something is not good, but they'll also be like, well, they have really good art design, like you said, or they have a really good character, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always some redeemable quality. And maybe that's just because of how the anime community works. There's a lot of like subsections within anime. Like, oh, there's people who love the romance ones, and there's people who love the harem ones, and there's people who love like the band of friend cast, you know, like the...
Yeah, and they're willing to look past other things.
Exactly, you know. And so there's always like a, what do you call it? A market for that. You know what anime I do want? What's the one? The one that you were telling me about, Steve? I think it was the one like that was voiced.
Age.
Which one?
I said Heroic Age.
First of all, Heroic Age is a achievement of mankind.
It's not bad at all.
No, it's that one that was like voiced by like, I think black people, or it was like a black
kind of Cannon Busters.
Yeah, I think that's one of those animes that is like we were talking about. Nobody talked about it. It's like, oh, Cannon Busters is coming out, and I never heard another thing about it.
Yeah, I watched all of it. Yeah. It wasn't like terrible. Like there was really nothing that stood out to me as like subpar. There's something about it was missing. It just didn't work. I hope another one comes out. I'll definitely watch it just to see how it goes.
Interesting.
So with these bad animes, like you guys are talking about how you're watching them. Like, is there a limit? I guess, like, if it's really bad, will you just stop watching it, or?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But, well, here's the thing. It depends on what aspects we're talking about. Because there's some things like Cannon Busters where I'm like, I'll watch the whole dang thing just to finish it, because nothing really stands out as bad. But there's some things, gosh, what is one that came out recently? I can't think of one now. But there's definitely, there's some shows, you know what, maybe not anime, but there's some shows that I've picked up where like I watched the first couple episodes and I'm like, no, it's not just that it isn't hitting right or it might get better. It's that there are distinct low quality traits.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the dubbing isn't good, or the animation doesn't look, not that it looks bad, but it just doesn't seem like they care that much, or they made bad decisions.
You know, and I would say that I think if you like started watching anime like a long time ago, you're kind of familiar with the idea that like animes tend to have a slow start. Like they're introducing characters, and there's a lot of like kind of like hijinks, and then like sometimes like it literally takes 15 episodes, maybe even more, like almost a full season before a show actually gets good. Like you may watch.
But here's the thing: even those slow start shows have like certain qualities about them you can see from the first episodes, where you're like, okay, this is going to be well made. You can see in the editing, you can see in the animation, in the voice acting. Like, you might not like a character immediately, but you can at least tell usually, like, oh, is he going to be well fleshed out, or is he just going to be like, a 2D joke? Like, I agree that the slow starts are a huge deal, and that's one of the hardest things about getting people to watch anime, because a lot of Americans don't want that.
Yeah. So I don't watch a ton of anime, but I would say the same thing exists in like brand new sitcoms. I don't know if you ever, like, I tried to watch, what was it, Family Matters a couple of months ago, and like the first season, there's no Urkel, so it's like super rough. But
wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first season, Urkel comes in later, and then he becomes a thing. Like,
he becomes the show. That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
So it kind of reminds me of that. Like they were trying, I guess, find their footing, and then it became something.
But I think you're right on, Kyle, when you say that. I think it's the same with American audiences when it comes to sitcoms. We're kind of used to the first season being like mediocre. Like, rarely is the first season like just a banger. You know what I'm saying? It's like the characters are coming in, you kind of feel the vibe. I think a lot of it is the setting and the premise. If the setting and the premise are interesting, and the characters are like not characters that you hate, I think the same with sitcoms and animes. Like, you're like, okay, I'm willing to continue to see where this goes.
Like, look at the Castlevania anime. that whole first season, it was a short first season, first of all, but it was pretty much just exposition. Like, they introduced most of the main characters, they introduced the villain and kind of the setting, but nothing really happened. But people still loved it because it was really obvious just from those 4 or 5 episodes that it was going to be really well done. And the second season came out, and it was an absolute banger.
Absolute banger. Boy, that thing was good.
Yeah, they did a great job. And so you can tell, even when there's a slow start, you can tell when something's going to go well.
So they laid the groundwork pretty well then.
Yeah, I think it was like more obvious. Sometimes shows are just slow.
Yeah.
I think with Castlevania, it was clear like it's slow because they're setting up for the next season. It was short. You know, they were like, all right, this is our next goal. We're going to go kill Dracula. And then it ended. Like, okay, I'm down. I'm down for this. It felt like a prequel.
So now that you mentioned that, you had me thinking about these short series that Marvel's been putting out. Have you guys been watching those?
No.
Yes. I watched a little bit of What If. I watched a little bit of them, but like, I'm on the fence about them in general.
I watched Loki, which I loved. I watched WandaVision, which I loved. I skipped, what is it? Falcon.
Oh, that one's
Winter
good.
Soldier.
Oh yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Actually, I have heard it was really good. I only watched the other two because I love sci-fi and intrigue and mystery, and I didn't see that coming. However, I probably will go back and watch Captain whatever.
Captain whatever.
And I skipped What If because I'm not interested in. Well, I like anthologies, but I'm not that interested in the Marvel universe, to be honest. And I'm like, none of this matters. I'm not going to watch it. I heard it's super cool. I heard it's really well done. I'm fine with that. I'm just not going to use my time to watch it.
So, quick question, Kyle. Do you see those series as, like, to me, when I think of WandaVision, because I've watched WandaVision, I've watched Loki, I've watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, and there's one more, right?
The Hawkeye just started.
Hawkeye, yeah. So I'm gonna start watching that soon.
Oh, yeah,
so
I forgot about him.
So those to me are like I guess they're short. Are they short? Like, they seem pretty long because the episodes are like normally 45 minutes to an hour, and there's a lot. It's not like Castlevania, which kind of felt like pretty short, like 3 episodes or, you know, like a part of a series. Like, these feel like full experiences. Like
well, they're full seasons. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yeah. So is that what you meant, Kyle, or did you mean like something else, like a shorter? Because you mentioned shorter things that Marvel's doing.
So to me, they all feel like season 1s, right?
Yeah.
And then
they end.
Yeah, they're only 9 episodes long, which, you know, I guess is fine because they're 45 minutes long. But because it's only the one season and there's, you know, only a handful of episodes, a lot of them, I'd say more than half, maybe the first 6 episodes feel like just complete exposition dump. And there's hardly little actually happening. And then like the last 3 episodes, it feels like they're setting up something more grand. Like they're resolving all the issues that they kind of alluded to while they were giving you the exposition. And now they're and now they're using the next episodes to kind of bring you to where I guess another show would have a season 2, but it's like all of these different shows are kind of pointing towards the movies that are coming out.
Exactly.
And so to me...
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant was they're short because they're not going to continue. They're one-offs.
Yeah. And so to me, because it's the shows one after another and the movies haven't come out yet, it's kind of like the same least favorite part, I guess, of a series happening over and over again. Like watching the lackluster season 1 over and over again. Yeah, there's new characters, but it's like it's the same. It has the same tonality to them.
I don't know if I would say that Loki or WandaVision were... I mean, I would definitely say WandaVision was slow. Well, Loki wasn't very slow. It definitely picked up like episode 1, I thought. Maybe episode 2. WandaVision was slow, but I wouldn't say that it felt finished to me. I don't know. I think it was just slow because of what it was, not because it's a one-off type show.
I think I feel you though, Kyle. I never thought about it that way, but it's like, like imagine if Dragon Ball Z movies. I know you haven't particularly watched Dragon Ball Z, Steve, but no, let's use something like I don't know Naruto movies or any anime movie. Like it kind of
Bleach.
to me, Bleach. Oh gosh, Bleach movies. But like it's like Bleach movies that actually matter, right? So like they're like isolated in their world and they're trying to elaborate on something that's important but they end up having stakes, and I think that's the biggest difference to me why I don't necessarily see them as one-offs, because they seem to be meaningful, you know what I'm saying? Like they seem to have a purpose and a goal versus like other shows that I have seen that are like Lion King 1.5 or something. Right?
Oh,
like,
gosh.
Like there's no, not that Lion King had like lore or something, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's just a spin-off, you know?
Yeah.
Like these feel like they're actually important, and Marvel specifically has done a good job at purposely weaving these tales, trying to lead to some greater point. So they kind of feel important, even if you were to like separate them out of the Marvel universe, if you knew nothing about the Marvel universe, maybe they would just be like, what is this? You know?
Yeah. And so yeah, for what they're worth and what they're doing, we enjoy them, me and Julie. So yeah, we're watching all of them. And I agree that I think that they're all very good. And you know, where they leave off, to me as a Marvel fan, the expectation is fine. And, you know, I appreciate, these interwoven stories because we're not left with nothing. And then once we do see, you know, how they culminate, it'll make a whole lot of sense having these like in-depth looks at the characters. So like, I get it, but it's just like the experience of going through the quote unquote season 1 for each of these tiny bits or these tinier experiences. They all have that same, I guess, velocity, where they have the first episode, you're introduced to something and it kind of ramps up. Like going through that over and over again is getting kind of tiresome.
Interesting.
Well, let me hit you with this. The alternative is they did in the past, which was put out a bunch of movies. And there you have every single movie has to have the exposition and the rising action and the finale. Like, and they all have to be self-contained.
Yeah.
And they all have, I would say, passing relevance to the next movie. Like, you know how sequels are. Usually, except for these part 2 movies that happen. Like, the sequel will have a different plot with a different villain. So it's cool that they're doing a show. Instead of what feels like 3 or 4 movies, they're doing a show that you only have to sit through that once.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Kyle, because I actually was thinking about this the other day, and you just like reminded me of this thought, that when I was thinking about those Marvel shows, the only show that I would have probably watched, say I knew nothing about the Marvel universe in general, and the only show that I would have watched and legitimately said, like, I really enjoyed this and I look forward to the next thing, was Loki. Because in you know, this is not a spoiler, but like Loki is clearly, there's a season 2 coming. Like they set it up for a season 2, and even just, I think they even said it directly that there's a season 2. Well, the way that it ends, at least. So like, it feels like Loki's one of those shows that's building.
Yeah.
While the other shows were just actively shooting toward their ending. This is all we wanted to say about this. But Loki feels like it has something greater. And I like Loki even outside of the Marvel universe because of the sci-fi setup and the cool like implications of what they were trying to do, and you know, the stakes and new characters, but they were interesting, and it just felt like a whole new world, like a whole new thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt standalone, and I think that's one of the things about, like, especially WandaVision being the first of its kind, was already kind of like all eyes on me type of thing for that show. And so the expectations were super high. But then I guess to couple that on the way that they did handle it, to where like towards the end, they started to give, I would call it the fan service type of thing, you know, where,
yeah.
like it was, in as far as cinematography is concerned, swapping over from, hey, we're the viewer watching a show to being like, oh, now this is in the Marvel universe because the perspective changed and, the quality's better and there's in credit scenes, like all that stuff was cool. But it was like, I don't know. I think I would have preferred if they handled that one in the same way they're handling Loki, where it's just like, this is something completely separate, even though it's connected. And so like, you're not trying, I guess, like I wasn't holding back my investment. I mean, I'm just watching a show. So, it hardly matters at the end of the day. But it's just like, I felt like I could invest more into Loki because they were doing something that didn't, like you said, just lead to what they wanted to say. Because they obviously had something they wanted to say at the end of WandaVision, that whether, on people on both sides of it, whether or not it was worth it to go through all the initial stuff to get to that ending. I'm not going to say what the ending was. It was just like, I guess back to the movie example, it is something that it could have said sooner, I guess, rather than watching 9 hours of a TV show, watching a 2.5 hour movie might have been better. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and they would have cut out a lot of the character development of characters that maybe are not as interesting. They would have been very focused and like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen Jessica Jones on Netflix? One of the
No, I skipped it because I had heard. Well, I wasn't really interested in the greater, the greater universe of Avengers they were building up there. And I also heard that Jessica Jones was like kind of traumatic or explicit or something, and I was like, I don't want to watch that. But I've also heard it was really good. So
Jessica Jones is almost an exact parallel to WandaVision, where like almost every person I've talked to who's like not a huge Marvel fan, but like somebody who's like, oh, I'm down for it. I've asked them, hey, have you watched WandaVision? And they go, yeah, I watched like the first episode and like maybe the second one. And I was like, And same thing when Jessica Jones came out, people would say, I watched the first 3-4 episodes. And I think it's because like those shows kind of, like you were saying, like they don't get started for a while. And then you don't feel like it's going anywhere. Like WandaVision feels very artistic because they're,
and I love that.
And it's cool. Like if you're down for an artistic experience, but if you're looking for like an engaging narrative, I think it misses
really
the spot versus like a Loki or even a Winter Soldier. And
I agree with that. Yeah,
a lot of my friends were complaining about WandaVision, and I was like, just sit tight and watch it. Like I definitely know people that can't. They need to have something immediately, like every episode. I'm like, no, it's a slow build. It's going to be great.
And that's a good point too. It's like because they were sending them out week by week and not giving people anything to latch on to. I think that's, what played into people having that experience. Like you said, like you have to, like if you have to coerce and convince people to watch it because it gets better, to me, I know there are shows that genuinely do get better, but to me, I don't think it's ever a good thing for that to be how your show is running. Like,
well, I guess I don't like the idea, it gets better. I wouldn't say that WandaVision got better. It was good. It was all good. It was slow. Like, that doesn't mean it's bad.
I think it just didn't meet expectations of what people were used to in the Marvel universe. Like, they're used to the movies, right? Which are like super start and go. Like, it's an hour and a half experience versus like 8 or 9 episodes, which could meander as it wants to, So,
to be honest, I thought WandaVision got worse because it did get more. What was the term you used, Kyle? It was like fan servicey.
Mm-hmm.
It went from like mystery, like psychological thriller kind of thing, like what's going on, what's happening, and it just turned into superhero antics. And I'm like,
yeah, that's true.
Do I care about this anymore?
I think the problem with WandaVision, it was just super. Like, it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. Like, I liked the mystery and like what's happening, but it kind of felt like, we're going to watch 9 episodes of different types of sitcom parodies and nothing's going to happen. That's kind of how it felt.
I can see that. Like, it felt like they were just stretching their, scratching their, or what is it? Popping their knuckles. Like, let's try this.
And it's funny. A good bit of the beginning stuff when they were doing the switching, it was non-consequential. Like, they could have done that so much, I guess,
quicker.
quicker. Yeah.
And I think it's funny that you were saying earlier, Kyle, that like you were watching not Home Improvement, Family Matters, and that it was slow and like didn't really get going to season 2 or whenever Steve Urkel. And it's funny that like WandaVision was parodying those type of shows and kind of was slow until
So if that's what they set out to do, I think they did that well, but I don't know if it necessarily helped their cause as far as viewership.
No, I think they intended for it to be a slower experience, and they hoped, maybe erroneously, that people would be cool with that. And I mean, some people definitely were. I think it went really well overall, but I definitely know some people who were not into it.
I think 100% if it wasn't a Marvel-based show, it probably would not be as popular.
Yeah.
I think it would have been just as good and like revered, like, oh, this is such a high-quality show. But like the percentage of people who actually would watch it would be like so much lower. Like, oh, this is an artistic, movie.
I'll tell you my motive.
Agree. Yeah.
My motive to watch all these shows is because I know people who tried to watch the Avengers without watching all the previous Marvel stuff. And they weren't, like, you could still enjoy those movies, but they were so lost, Like, I'm kind of watching these videos, like, drudging through the parts about these shows that I don't like, just so I'm not lost later.
That's fair.
So you're just watching it to be included for FOMO, basically.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like when I went and saw Harry Potter Part 2, whatever the last one was, and I had not watched any of the other Harry Potters. Like,
what?
Yes. Like, no, I watched the first one. And I think maybe the second one, kind of, sort of, but I wasn't.
No, that's not that. Still, by what stands? What are you thinking?
Well, this is the thing.
It's a whole movie series.
Well, that's the thing. Like, to me, a movie is a movie, and I will enjoy it irrelevant of where I watch it. Like, if I watch, let's say 007, a Bond movie, like, I know that there's a whole bunch of them before, but I always have seen movies as a standalone experience. It wasn't until I think...
But not all movies are like that.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I think it wasn't until Lord of the Rings where, like, movies were having really direct sequels. Like, you, like, literally starting directly after a movie ends. Like, if a movie had a part 2, like, Matrix might be the predecessor to that, right? Like, there's very few movies where they had a part 2 or even in the same series that were literally like direct sequels. Like, if you watched Ocean's 12, right? Like, you could still watch Ocean's 12 and enjoy it without seeing Ocean's 11 because fundamentally it's the same movie with some like antics like, remember in Ocean's 11 when George Clooney did this, like, and it's kind of like over your head, but you still enjoy the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I think Harry Potter is mostly like that. Like, you don't need to watch every Harry Potter movie. But the fact that you started on part 2, like, it says part 2, man. Watch part 1 first.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, my movie experience has never been that it matters. Like, it's just what they do in the beginning of part 1 is part 2 is explain to you what happened in part 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, they give you like a quick synopsis. It's like,
I don't know, man. I think if it has part 2 in the name, that's where for me that would be the dead giveaway.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't blame you for watching the 4th movie before the 3rd one. Like, sure, but
well, let me just tell you this: I've seen other movies within it, and honestly, all of them are incomprehensible to me. Like, I literally have like I remember seeing them go to some underground magic court or something, and there was a weird lady who looked kind of like pale, and she seemed to be evil. Like, I just remember seeing all these things, and I never saw them in order, and being like, "Bruh, I don't know what's happening." You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, that might just be your experience because I don't think I don't know. I feel like most of them are pretty self.
I will tell you this as a person who's never read a Harry Potter book, who's not interested in the Harry Potter universe. They are not self-contained. Like, you fundamentally, if you don't watch the movie before them, you have no idea who these characters are because nobody goes, "Hey, Ron, who's the best friend of this person?" Like, movies like to do that. Like, they try to like reintroduce you to people, but like these kind
so you're okay. Yeah. There's no exposition for the characters.
Yeah, and not Harry Potter. Lord of the Rings does a similar thing. Like, if you start in Lord of the Rings 2 Towers or something, you're gonna be like, "Bro, what?"
Well, Lord of the Rings is, I would say, definitely like that because Lord of the Rings it's one story split into 3 movies. Like there's not really a finale in the Fellowship of the Ring. Like it's just okay. The journey continues to the next movie. Whereas Harry Potter mostly finishes every year, and then you go home for Christmas or for summer vacation, and you come back the next year. It's the next movie. Like maybe the characters and the setting would be incomprehensible, but I feel like the plot should have been.
It is not. It is super. Like I'm telling you, as a person who has no clue what's going on, like it's super confusing. I just noticed a whole bunch of magic, and like Harry's parents died or something, or no, he's an orphan, and then like I know, like it's not clear to me that there's an underlying like direction in every movie. It just seems like Harry Potter is doing stuff that, but like not realizing that, oh, he's doing it because something that happened in the last movie when he talked to this person and they said, oh, this weird Horcrux thing. I don't know. I'm just saying stuff. I don't know Harry Potter. So don't
well, yeah. By the time you talk about Horcruxes, it's more connected, but the first 5 movies I would say are pretty like episodic almost.
Yeah, I would say, nothing against Harry Potter, but I definitely feel like movies, the Marvel universe, like particularly being one of them, is like you were saying, Kyle, like if you miss out on it, like you're gonna be super confused if you jump into Avengers. You know what I'm saying? Like, from the jump, because of all the backstories and stuff like that.
But I'll say this: I think that's mostly because. I think it's only because of what Brad was just talking about, which is exposition of the characters and maybe some of the setting. No, actually, there's definitely some plot points that follow through. Starting in like Civil War, things really get heavy.
Yeah.
But before that, it doesn't matter as much.
Well, something I was going to say to something you guys said a little bit earlier about like just media in general, like, is that like, the difference between a show that I think is good and is easy to like keep you going is that like, for example, let's use WandaVision. Like if you watch the first episode or 2, would you have any clear understanding of where the show might be going? Right? Like it just seems like stuff is happening, it's incomprehensible. Yeah, but shows that are like good, in the first episode or 2, you kind of have an idea of the trajectory. Like, even if it's not good, like the first season's not that great, you're like, ooh, I wonder how this goes,
Yeah, they were definitely digging into the mystery, almost a little bit too heavy-handed, because there was just nothing to glean. It's just like, what is going on? Why should I be watching this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why?
I don't know if I would say that's what makes a show good or not. It's definitely an attribute of some shows.
Well, maybe
I don't think
maybe what I meant to say
bad.
is it makes a show like people stick around. Might be a better way to say it. Might be a better way to say it.
Well then, yeah, I could definitely agree.
Because I feel like Jessica Jones was similar. Like it just was like meandering, but you were like, okay, Jessica, you kind of have a drinking problem, and you seem to be strong. That's great. Like, I don't know where this is going, though, versus Knights of Sidonia, which tells you how great it is from the beginning and just never stops.
You better know.
Here's the difference between Jessica Jones and Knights of Sidonia, though, right? Jessica Jones, in a lot of ways, is a character study. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not, the stakes aren't that high in a cosmic sense. It's really about Jessica and what she deals with, really, right? I don't know.
You're right on. You're right on.
And that's why they spend so much time with Jessica meandering. Whereas Knights of Sidonia, there are no good characters. And really, you don't care about any of them. So it just needs to tell you what's happening immediately, because that's the only thing that's vaguely interesting.
But maybe it's because the reason Knights of Sidonia does well and why most people actually watch it is because the premise, right? The characters don't matter, but the premise is interesting. Right?
It has a strong premise, yeah.
Yeah. Like, have y'all, like, Kyle, I guess, like, is there a show you could think of that you're like, you've watched all the way through that was kind of not good, but you really were interested in the premise and where it might go? Like, if you could think of any?
That's a tough question. Let me think for a minute.
Yeah, so for me, I can straight out, like, anime is the best place to go. Is definitely Sword Art Online. Like like that's when I think of like one. I think I said this in our anime episode. One of the best shows that like just destroyed itself. Like had the coolest premise. Like where could they take this? It destroyed my heart because I want them to do the Full Metal Alchemist thing where they just go like, so remember that show? Don't worry about that. We gonna do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But they're not gonna do that because that's how the manga is too, right? There's no better version of this.
Rewrite it, son. Just do it.
And Sword Art Online, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but to me, it had a lot of those high quality indicators the first couple episodes.
Absolutely.
Like there were some plot holes and some things that were questionable, but I was willing to look past them. And then it kind of, I think for me, it lost what made it bad was when everything stopped mattering, when their fake daughter was killed.
Wait. Don't spoil it just in case.
I'm happy to spoil it.
Like I said, but don't. I'm telling you not to. Just say that. Don't do that, just in case somebody
Whatever,
cares.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The point is,
it doesn't matter.
The point is nothing in the show matters. They make you think things matter, and then nothing matters.
I think that's it. Stakes. If the stakes, like you know when you watch a show and it has high, like there's a character who has like plot armor, like you know for sure there's absolutely no way that they'll ever die, get injured, because they're
Goku.
At least Goku died. Goku got heart disease and straight up died.
Man, that don't count.
But it didn't matter.
It didn't count.
You can still visit his family on Christmas.
Yeah, but as far as like the stakes to the day-to-day, Goku was missing like during the Buu saga. Like it was.
That's fair.
You know.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
Sword Art Online's worse than that.
much worse.
And it's worse because they set it up like they pound it into your head.
The stakes, yes.
Anybody could die, you know, and then who knows? And then after that, it got even worse because it just keeps dragging out essentially the same story, and the character never grows or changes, and there's tentacle rape. Like it just it's just nothing good.
Oh, yeah,
not actual tentacle rape.
But I know what he's talking about. Yeah, there's some sus things.
Some sus imagery.
Oh my gosh.
As the kids would say. Yeah. I mean,
don't watch Sword Art. Just don't waste your time.
I think another.
Don't get your hopes up.
I don't know if Kyle, have you thought of anything yet?
So can you repeat the question? I think I have an answer, but I want you to repeat the question so
I
can make
just a show with a really strong premise that didn't deliver. You know, like something that was like, oh, this is really cool, but it didn't deliver.
So back in the day, I can't remember the name of the show, but it was about this guy who found a giant robot.
Okay.
And it had flames painted on it, and he would drive it like a car.
The redneck guy with the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Oh, on Cartoon Network.
He looked like Guy Fieri.
Yeah, on Cartoon Network. Yeah.
Guy Fieri in a transformer.
And it was like rock. It was kind of rock based.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to Flavortown.
Dude, what was that show called? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I have no idea.
It doesn't matter what it was called.
We'll have to look it up.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
So I was big into like Transformers and stuff. And so the premise of this guy finding like a random Transformer and getting into all these battles and stuff, I thought that was really cool. Like that hooked me visually, but from what I remember, there's nothing like I can't remember the show's name. So if that tells you, you know, so I don't remember there being any storyline, anything that ever happened in that show that ever stuck with me.
Yeah, I remember that show, and I remember like Megas XLR. Megas XLR.
There it is.
That's the name of the show.
What a bad name. No wonder you.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Terrible.
It was horrible. Yeah.
Everything except the premise was awful.
Yeah, I feel like that was me and Zatch Bell. I really like the premise of Zatch Bell, but like the delivery was kind of like not great. Like it had a cool like, oh, like you're fighting to see who's going to be king in this other realm, and if they die here, it's like meaningful and da-da-da, and then it's like, but it's Zatch Bell.
I feel like every time you say the word Zatch Bell, I feel like to like wash out my ears with soap. Like, something about that title is just very unpleasant.
Yeah, it's like Megas XLR. It's just not.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Zatch Bell. Ugh.
You know, there is a show that I think I forget about it every once in a while, but I think it's one of the best shows that nobody ever expected to go.
Big O.
Huh?
Peppa Pig.
The tomatoes. If you watch Big O, you know the tomatoes was just the creepiest, like that old man. Anyway,
Excuse me?
it was gosh, now you
Very good.
Beast Wars.
Oh,
Beast
Beast Wars.
The Transformers knockoff?
Yeah.
Transformers Beast Wars. It's the
Dude,
best.
I remember
show
loving that show.
ever.
It was so good.
It was so intense, dude. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
was.
It was an adult show. Like I felt like I was watching a show that I shouldn't have been watching as a kid.
I'm pretty sure Rat Trap would curse.
You mean Junkrat?
Was it Junkrat? I could have sworn it was Rat
No.
Trap.
Junkrat.
No. Isn't that the guy's name from
Oh, from Overwatch.
Overwatch?
Yeah. He does
I was
too.
watching Arcane, and one of the kids from Arcane looks like Junkrat. We called him Junk. I was with my
Oh,
friends.
that's rough.
We were just dogging on him the whole time.
Man.
That man has fists.
Yeah, Beast Wars was super intense. There was this whole storyline about this character who was evil, and then his redemption, and all the stuff that happened with him, and like
Like Power Rangers.
they literally went somewhere with it. Like it was. Honestly, I want to go back and watch Beast Wars. It probably has aged terribly because it was
Oh,
one
the
of those.
CGI was.
Yeah, the CG was really rough. I
Everything
remember
was
I
so
had at least
smooth.
one like transforming toy from Beast Wars. I think it was the rat.
I had
Oh,
the
okay.
cheetah.
Yeah, I had one of them. I can't remember which one.
Didn't
Wasn't it
they?
a gorilla?
Didn't they still call the gorilla like all of the animals had like animalistic transformation names? But
Mhm.
wasn't the gorilla still called Optimus Prime?
Well, you got to have Optimus
I
Prime.
can't. I
Come on.
cannot remember. I just remember it just being great. Like, and it was
It was
just
very
secretly great. Like, wow.
It's probably so bad, dude. We probably remember it, and it's just
Dude,
It was great for being
I'm
bad.
telling you, it was great. Maybe for the time, you might be right.
You know what show I think was great for the time, but if I watched now, I would probably just die of embarrassment.
Mm.
Reboot.
Oh,
no,
gosh.
no. I went back and watched Reboot like 5 years ago. That show
It
is
holds
still
up?
solid, son. That show
Come
is
on.
Still solid?
solid.
The
Like,
game is
I
terrible.
think I only watched it in Spanish when I was in Puerto Rico. There was so many
Enzo.
cartoons I watched Sailor Moon in Spanish, dude. My life was
Enzo, ¿por qué?
weird.
No, I was
Porque?
actually gonna bring up that Reboots has actually aged well, and the story's still good. Like,
Okay,
It's
well,
not.
that's good to know.
yeah, like even I mean visually, it's aged
Rough-
well. Like
rough CGI.
whatever technique they used, it's kind of like Wind Waker, where like Wind Waker still looks good because
Oh,
it's like they stylized it instead of trying too hard to be. You know, do y'all
doing what
remember?
Beast Wars did.
Y'all remember Code Lyoko?
Oh yeah,
Yes, I've actually watched Code Lyoko. I watched I think 10 or 15 episodes this year.
that's a great show.
Really?
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of those shows that like is secretly just so terrible, but
You know
I
what?
love it.
That's my answer to your question. That's the show that had a cool premise.
Oh yeah,
And it's just really does not deliver.
And then the characters
like, I
all
don't-
look
I'm s-
terrible. Like they all look
Yeah, the
horrible.
characters look terrible.
their heads are
I-
triangles.
Brad, I'm sorry. Not sorry. Kyle, I'm sorry. I don't know why you keep saying you love it. When was the last time you watched this?
A couple of years ago. No, I know how bad it is, but I still love it.
Okay.
He
Okay,
like
well, as long
his
as you
favorite
know.
anime is
Yeah.
like Yu-Gi-Oh, son.
Right.
Like
I know, that's true. I have no I
Jeremy
should have any
and
expectations.
Aelita, man, they're
my
in there.
gosh.
They're in my
You
heart.
mean Jeremy and Aelita.
Let me tell you, Code Lyoko is one of those shows that like if you missed a few episodes,
Oh,
you would be so confused. Like
Yeah.
it hardly
I-
mattered.
I it's one of those shows that like I never really got into because of how my bank account was set up. No, because of
Yeah.
because of how my school system was, and I wouldn't always make it home at the same time. I always missed Code Lyoko because it came on a little bit earlier than the other shows, and I just was super confused. So It was, what was the premise? Like, they were digital, like...
So the premise is a little bit contrived. It's these kids at school, at some fancy boarding school in Tokyo? I think it's Tokyo, but it might be Paris.
I don't remember.
Either one. Some big city. They're at a boarding school, and before the show starts, they found this insane quantum computer, like in the basement level of some abandoned factory. And inside the quantum computer, they found a whole world that's being simulated. And in the world, they found a friend, Aelita.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they also found the virus Xanax. Xanax?
Something like that, yeah.
Not Xanax. Xan something. And so the virus basically, I guess they woke it up or something. I haven't watched enough episodes to know exactly what happened, but from that point on, Xanax was always trying to break into our world and essentially take over the world. And they have to go into Lyoko and find the towers that Xanax is using to access our world. I guess the ports, and shut them down.
Yeah.
And only Aelita can shut them down. So they had to basically escort her through these enemies to the tower, and she shuts it down. And then in the real world, Jeremy invokes this insane ability that this computer can recreate the entire universe, like basically go back in time, so nothing ever happened and only they remember what happened.
What?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh,
you do like a
my
fade to
So,
white.
yeah, they would.
I don't remember any of this.
Yeah.
So she would put in code Lyoko, and the tower would shut. And they had this animation they play every single time. The tower shuts down, everything goes dark, and then this white like wave comes out, and the wave expands from the factory and envelops the school and envelops the city, and everything goes back to the way it was that morning.
And it cuts to them laughing.
And there was some moments. There's one episode where they're basically bullying the plastic mean girl character. And then the second time around, they don't bully her as hard. I'm like, oh, thank God. They had like no remorse. They didn't make it bad. Like the show was basically, yeah, these kids are jerks to this poor girl who just wants to be liked and is like 9 years old and doesn't know how to act any different. Anyway, I don't understand yet why there are stakes, because it feels like if anyone dies, they would just be reborn with the reconstruction of the world. But like every time something happens in the real world, they're like, we gotta fix it before these people die in a train accident. And it's like, did they stay dead? It hasn't been explained.
Well, I guess is it that if they don't succeed and get to that tower, the ramifications of their actions stays?
Well,
right?
Yeah, but I'm saying like it doesn't feel like there's a time limit for them to succeed. It feels like they should be able to do things at their own pace. But oftentimes, their journey to the tower, they're rushing.
Oh yeah,
and they're in
constantly
danger
running.
because they're rushing.
Maybe there is a time constraint that we're unaware of. I don't know. That show was weird.
Those voice actors did a bunch of huffing and puffing.
Yeah, the voice acting was whatever. The script was weird. It felt like the script was pretty weird.
Weren't they trying to get Aelita out of the computer? Didn't they?
Yeah,
they did it at some point.
The secondary plot is that Jeremy is trying to find a way to manifest her, because when they go into the computer, I think their bodies disappear. Mm-hmm. And when they come out, it regenerates their bodies. And I think that he was trying to figure out a way to generate her a body and make her human.
Because he like loved her or something.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because she was his cyber crush.
Yeah, man.
This man was literally Kip from Napoleon Dynamite chatting with hot babes online.
Yo, let me tell you, those shows back then were like, I really would love us to do a deep dive on Reboot, because Reboot had like
pathos.
Kyle, have you've watched Reboot before?
I didn't watch Reboot that much, but I did watch like the PBS knockoff version.
There's a PBS knockoff?
Yeah, it was these kids that would Cyber Chase, I think
Restart?
It was called.
Power Cycle?
Cyber Chase, and they would track down the hacker, but it was more about learning. But
yeah, like Reboot, like I don't want to even talk too much about it, because I think there's some really cool moments in the show that you wouldn't expect if you've never seen it. For a long time, it was on Hulu. I don't know if it's there anymore, but that's where I rewatched it. But like, there's a point where, so basically the premise, and I can't believe I'm ending this episode giving the premise of Reboot, but
there's no better way to end it.
The premise of Reboot is they all, like, it was this people who lived inside of a computer, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's like these viruses, and there's Bob, and Bob is basically like, I guess the Norton software, I guess.
The
like,
antivirus?
He's like a guardian.
Yeah, he's like the antivirus, and he basically is like super powered, and he's always helping the main character Enzo and Dot, I think her name was.
Was Dot a dog or a little kid or something?
The woman, I think her name was Dot or something.
I don't remember any of the characters.
But anyway, so he'd always show up. But the thing is, what the premise was that every episode, a game would come down, and
from the user,
right? And if the user, I don't know, I gotta go back and rewatch it because it was super deep. If the user wins, like that space where the game came down, like it came down as like this giant, like
it's like a giant cube that just sucks up the city.
That space turns into a game. That whole area, all the residents, everybody who lives there, and if they lose the game, everybody dies.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So the stakes are really, really high. And as the show goes further on, like it's a kid's show, you start to see the stakes play out. Because there's some moments where you see the ramifications of people's actions depending on how the games go. And then there's these viruses, Hexadecimal and I can't remember, Megabyte, who are like, Hexadecimal is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Super insane.
I remember Megabyte.
She's like the Joker, right?
Mm-hmm. And her face has changed, which is super cool. Like with her emotions. Yeah. Like it's super cool how they did that.
So did mine.
Yes. But like it's a really like seemingly like simple plot, but once it gets to like season 2 or 3, it gets super serious. And I'll just leave it at that. We should do like a reboot deep dive. Like, yeah, like it has a lot to talk about, especially where it goes. And Beast Wars. So I got to write all these down. I got here.
Oh, yeah.
I got Sunshine. I got Europa Report. I got Europa Report was a real short episode. It trash. Thank you everybody for watching.
Trash.
So yeah, like it's worth a watch. I'm gonna see if I can.
I will say this. I think that we could talk more about what the topic of this episode was supposed to be. Maybe we just pick up again some other time.
Yeah. I mean, TV versus YouTube versus. There's so much to say about mediums and like. Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about like YouTube in general, like the whole landscape of YouTube, where it's been and what it's become and all that.
Wow, what a deep conversation.
Yeah. You know. So first of all, thank you guys. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Steve. I love where the conversation went. I'm so happy we talked about Code Lyoko because I completely forgot. As we were talking, I was like, y'all remember Code Lyoko? Like, more like, was that a fever dream?
We gotta rewatch that one too then.
Yeah, we gotta watch all 3 of those.
I'm already halfway through the first season. I hope.
Those 3D animation shows. But yeah, so thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kyle, as always, for your thoughts and opinions. I love the conversation. And thank you, of course, Super Agile Bros Nation, for tuning in. Once again, we always love to hear you guys' voice. Please leave a comment, a like, subscribe, all that jazz on all of our different channels. Of course, we're on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, everywhere. So thank you guys, and thank you for listening. We appreciate you guys. And until next time, peace.